We read the first 5. I don't know if they're called chapters or sections. They're really not that big. So we read up to... Oh, it is. It is. The Body was actually made into a movie called Stand By Me. And the movie was really, really good. So we got up to the part where they've decided they're going to have a sleepover. And if you've watched Stand By Me, the sleepover is basically everybody is going to sleep in the one kid's backyard, but actually they're not going to sleep in the backyard. They're going to go see this body that apparently is supposed to be the body of a child their age, and they're 12, 13 years old. So that's what we're dealing with today. To give a recap, they were up in their clubhouse in an elm that is now torn down, and they were playing cards, and their one friend come running, Vern, and he explained that he heard from his brother that there was a body, and they had seen it, and they can't tell anybody because they boosted a car to go do it. Well, with that being said, the boys decided, let's do this. Well, 2 of their friends are gone for the summer still. They won't be back till after the weekend, which is Labor Day weekend. They're getting ready to start school. So, the 4 boys, Vern, Chris, Teddy, and I'll be darned. Oh, man. What was the other kid's name? There's Vern, Teddy, Chris, and I'll be darned if I can't think of the other kid's name because my mind is just blanking me at the moment. Oh, this sucks. I can't remember his name. And I know it's here. Oh, you know what? The I person never actually says who he is. So far, I does not have a name. Gordy. Gordy's the other one. So there's Teddy, Gordy, Vern, and Chris. And I don't think... Yeah, Gordy's the one that's telling the story. Okay, so we're caught up. So we left them with them all deciding that at 10 o'clock, we don't know if it's morning or afternoon, morning or night, but it says at 10 o'clock they drifted home to fix it with their parents, and that is where we're starting. So, and like I said, these chapters, if they are chapters, are not very big. So we're going to do just, the first chapter was really, really small, and all it did was just explain a little bit. So we're on 6, and we're going to just read and see how far we get. So, I got to my house. Oh, and again, I'm Lady Rain. I always forget to say that, and so I want to say that. I also read on Kick. I have been reading from Night Shift over there. We read Jerusalem's Lot, Graveyard Shift, and Night Surf. And it's funny because Night Surf is kind of connected to The Stand as far as Captain Trips, which is really neat. They also call it A6. So that gives you more detail when you read that about how things are going. They literally think they're the last humans on Earth. So yeah, we've been reading over there. And over there it's just Lady Rain, whereas here it's Lady Rain 1974 because I couldn't just get Lady Rain, of course. But yeah, let's see what happens today, shall we? I got to my house at 11:15 after stopping at the drugstore to check out the paperbacks, so this must be in the morning. I did that every couple of days to see if there were any new John D. McDonald's. I had a quarter, and I figured if there was, I'd take it along. And again, I leave my mess ups in. I'm a normal person that reads and messes up. Oh, yes. And I will reread a sentence if I don't get it the first time because, But there were only the old ones, and I'd read most of those 6 times. When I got home, the car was gone, and I remembered that my mom and some of her hen party friends had gone to Boston to see a concert. A great old concert goer, my mom, and why not? Her only kid was dead, and she had to do something to take her mind off it. I guess that sounds pretty bitter, And I guess if you'd been there, you'd understand why I felt that way. His brother Dennis passed away not too long ago, and they pretty much act like Gordy doesn't exist. Dad was out back, passing a fine spray from the hose over his ruined garden. And there's been no rain, so the gardens are all ruined, the grass is all ruined. If you couldn't tell, it was a lost cause from his glum face. You sure could by looking at the garden itself. The soil was a light, powdery gray. Everything in it was dead except for the corn, which had never grown so much as a single edible ear. Dad said he'd never known how to water a garden. It had to be Mother Nature or nobody. He'd watered too long in one spot and drowned the plants. In the next row, plants were dying of thirst. He could never hit a happy medium. But he didn't talk about it often. He'd lost the son in April and a garden in August. And if he didn't want to talk about either one, I guess that was his privilege. It just bugged me that he'd given up talking about everything else, too. That was taking democracy too far. Standing beside him, I offered him the Rolos I'd bought at the drugstore. Want one? Hello, Gordon. No, thanks. He kept on flicking the fine spray over the hopeless gray earth. Be okay if I can camp out in Vern Tessio's back field tonight with some of the guys? What guys? Vern, Teddy, DeChamp, maybe Chris. I expected him to start right in on Chris. How Chris was bad company, a rotten apple from the bottom of the barrel, a thief, an apprentice juvenile delinquent, but he just sighed and said, I suppose it's okay. Great, thanks. I turned to go into the house and checked out what was on the boob tube when he stopped me with, those are the only people you want to be with, aren't they, Gordon? I looked at him, braced for an argument, but there was no argument in him that morning. It would have been better if there had been, I think. His shoulders were slumped, his face pointed toward the dead garden, and not toward me, sagged. There was a certain unnatural sparkle in his eyes that might have been tears. Aw, Dad, they're okay. Of course they are. A thief and two Phoebes. Fine company for my son. Fern Tessio isn't feeble, I said. Teddy was a harder case to argue. 12 years old and still in the 5th grade, my dad said. And that time he slept over, when the Sunday paper came the next morning, he took an hour and a half to read the funny pages. That made me mad, because I didn't think he was being fair. He was judging Vern the way he judged all my friends, from having seen them off and on, mostly going in and out of the house. He was wrong about them. And when he called Chris a thief, I always saw red, because he didn't know anything about Chris. I wanted to tell him that. And if I pissed him off, he'd keep me home. But if I pissed him off, he'd keep me home. And he wasn't really mad anyway. Not like he got at the supper table sometimes, ranting so loud that nobody wanted to eat. Now he just looked sad and tired and used. He was 63 years old enough to be my grandfather. My mom was 55, no spring chicken either. When she and Dad got married, they tried to start a family right away. My mom got pregnant and had a miscarriage. She miscarried 2 more, and the doctor told her she'd never be able to carry a baby to term. I got all of this stuff, chapter and verse, whenever one of them was lecturing me, you understand. They wanted me to think I was a special delivery from God, and I wasn't appreciating my great good fortune in being conceived when my mother was 42 and starting to gray. I wasn't appreciating my great good fortune, and I wasn't appreciating her tremendous pain and sacrifices either. I forgot to tell my group on Discord that I was reading. 1 second. Reading on Twitch. There we go. 5 years after the doctor said Mom would never have a baby, she got pregnant with Dennis. She carried him for 8 months, and then he just sort of fell out, all 8 pounds of him. My father used to say that if she had carried Dennis to term, the kid would have weighed 15 pounds. The doctor said, well, sometimes nature fools us, but he'll be the only one you'll ever have. Thank God for him and be content. 10 years later, she got pregnant with me. She not only carried me to term, the doctor had to use forceps to yank me out. Did you ever hear of such a fucked up family? I came into the world the child of 2 Geritol chuggers, not to go on and on about it. And my only brother was playing league baseball in the big kids park before I even got out of diapers. In the case of my mom and dad, one gift from God had been enough. I won't say they treated me badly, and they sure never beat me, but I was a hell of a big surprise. And I guess when you get into your 40s, you're not partial to surprises as you were in your 20s. After I was born, Mom got that operation her hen party friends referred to as the Band-Aid. I guess she wanted to make 100% sure that there wouldn't be any more gifts from God. When I got to college, I found out I'd beaten long odds just by not being born retarded. Although I think my dad had his doubts when he saw my friend Vern taking 10 minutes to puzzle out the dialogue in Beetle Bailey. This business about being ignored. I could never really pin it down until I did a book report in high school on this novel called The Invisible Man. When I agreed to do the book for Mrs. Hardy, I thought it was going to be a science fiction story about a guy in bandages and Foster Grants. Claude Rains played him in the movies. When I found out this was a different story, I tried to give the book back, but Mrs. Hardy didn't let me off the hook. I ended up being real glad. This Invisible Man is about a Negro. Oh, I'm going to have to put in racial slurs there in my disclaimer. Nobody ever notices him at all unless he fucks up. People look right through him. When he talks, nobody answers. He's like a black ghost. Once I got into it, I ate that book up like it was a John D. McDonald because that cat, Ralph Ellison, was writing about me. At the supper table, it was Denny. How many did you stroke out? And Denny, who asked you to the Sadie Hopkins dance? And Denny, I want to talk to you man to man about the car we were looking at. I'd say, pass the butter, and Dad would say, Denny, are you sure the Army is what you want? I'd say, pass the butter, someone, okay? And Mom would ask Denny if he wanted her to pick him up one of the Pendleton shirts on sale downtown, and I'd end up getting the butter myself. One night when I was 9, just to see what would happen, I said, please pass the goddamn spuds. And my mom said, Denny, Aunt Gracie called today, and she asked after you and Gordon. The night Dennis graduated with honors from Castle Rock High School, I played sick and stayed home. I got Stevie Darabout's oldest brother, Royce, to buy me a bottle of wild Irish rose, and I drank half of it and puked in my bed in the middle of the night. In a family situation like that, you're supposed to either hate the older brother or idolize him hopelessly. At least that's what they teach you in college psychology. Bullshit, right? But so far as I can tell, I didn't feel either way about Dennis. We rarely argued and never had a fist fight. That would have been ridiculous. Can you see a 14-year-old boy finding something to beat up his 4-year-old brother about? And our folks were always a little too impressed with him to burden him with the care of his little brother. So he never resented me the way some older kids come to resent their sibs. When Dennis took me with him somewhere, it was of his own free will, and those were some of the happiest times I can remember. Hey, LaChance, who the fuck is that? My kid brother, and you better watch your mouth, Davis. He'll beat the crap out of you. Gordon's tough. They gather around me for a moment, huge, impossibly tall, just a moment of interest like a patch of sun. They are all so big. They are so old. Hey, kid, this wet end really your big brother? I'd nod shyly. He's a real asshole, ain't he, kid? I'd nod again, and everybody, Dennis included, roared with laughter. Then Dennis claps his hands together twice briskly and says, "Come on. We gonna have practice or stand around here like a bunch of pussies." They run to their positions, already peppering the ball around the infield. Go sit over there on the bench, Gordy. Be quiet. Don't bother anybody. I go sit over there on the bench. I am good. I feel impossibly small under the sweet summer clouds. I watch my brother pitch. I don't bother anybody. But there weren't many times like that. Sometimes he read me bedtime stories that were better than Mom's. Mom's stories were about the gingerbread man and the three little pigs. Okay stuff. But Dennis's were about stuff like Blackbeard and Jack the Ripper. He also had a version of Billy Goat's Gruff where the troll under the bridge ended up the winner. And as I have already said, he taught me the game of cribbage and how to do a box shuffle. Not that much, but hey, in this world you take what you can get, am I right? As I grew older, my feelings of love for Dennis were replaced with an almost cynical awe. The kind of awe so Christians feel for God, I guess. And when he died, I was mildly shocked and mildly sad, the way I imagine those same so Christians must have felt when Time magazine said God was dead. Let me put it this way. I was sad for Dennis's dying, as I was when I heard on the radio that Dan Blocker had died. I'd seen them both about as frequently, and Denny never even got any reruns. He was buried in a closed casket with the American flag on top. They took the flag off the box before they finally stuck it in the ground and folded it. The flag, not the box. Into a cocked hat and gave it to my mom. That explains how he's never seen a dead body before this. He didn't see his brothers, just the coffin. Explains it a lot. My parents just fell to pieces. 4 months hadn't been long enough to put them back together again. I didn't know if they'd ever be whole again. Mr. and Mrs. Dumpty. Dennis's room was in suspended animation just one door down from my room. Suspended animation, or maybe in a time warp. The Ivy League college pennants were still on the walls, and the senior pictures of the girls he had dated were still tucked into the mirror, where he had stood for what seemed like hours at a stretch, combing his hair back into a ducktail like Elvis's. The stack of Trues and Sports Illustrateds remained on his desk, their dates looking more and more antique as time passed. It's the kind of thing you see in sticky, sentimental movies. But it wasn't sentimental to me. It was terrible. I didn't go into Dennis's room unless I had to, because I kept expecting that he would be behind the door, or under the bed, or in the closet. Mostly it was the closet that preyed on my mind, and if my mother sent me in to get Dennis's postcard album or his shoebox of photographs so she could look at them, I would imagine the door swinging slowly open until I stood rooted to the spot with horror. I would imagine him pallid and bloody in the darkness, the side of his head walloped in, a gray-veined cake of blood and brains drying on his shirt. I would imagine his arms coming up, his bloody hands hooking into claws, and I would be croaking. "It should have been you," he would be croaking. "It should have been you, Gordon. It should have been you." Stud City by Gordon LaChance. Originally published in Greenspun Quarterly. Issue 45, Fall 1970. Used by permission. March. Chico stands at the window, arms crossed, elbows on the ledge that divides upper and lower panes, naked, looking out, breath fogging the glass. A draft against his belly. Bottom right pane is gone, blocked by a piece of cardboard. Chico! He doesn't turn. She doesn't speak again. He could see a ghost of her in the glass, in his bed, sitting, blankets pulled up in apparent defiance of gravity. Her eye makeup was smeared into deep hollows under her eyes. Chico shifts his gaze beyond her ghost, out beyond the house. Raining. Patches of snow slowed away to reveal the bald ground underneath. He sees last year's dead grass, a plastic toy, Billy's, a rusty rake. His brother Johnny's Dodge is up on blocks, the detired wheels sticking out like stumps. He remembers times he and Johnny worked on it, listening to the super hits and boss oldies of WLAM in Lewiston, pour out of Johnny's old transistor radio. A couple of times, Johnny would give him a beer. "She's going to run fast, Chico," Johnny would say. "She's going to eat up everything on this road from Gates Falls to Castle Rock. Wait till we get that Hearst shifter in her." But that had been then, and this was now. Beyond Johnny's Dodge was the highway, Route 14, goes to Portland and New Hampshire south, all the way to Canada north, if you turned left onto US 1 in Thomaston. "Stud City," Chico says to the glass. He smokes a cigarette. "What?" "Nothing, babe." "Chico?" Her voice is puzzled. "He will have to change the sheets before Dad gets back." She bled. "What?" "I love you, Chico." "That's right." Dirty March. You're some old whore, Chico thinks. Dirty, staggering old baggy tits March, with rain in her face. "This room used to be Johnny's," he says suddenly. "Who?" "My brother." "Oh, where is he?" "In the army," Chico says. But Johnny isn't in the army. He had been working the summer before the Oxford Plains Speedway, and a car went out of control and skidded across the infield towards the pit area where Johnny had been changing the back tires on the Chevy Charger class Stoker. Some guys shouted at him to look out, but Johnny never heard them. One of the guys who shouted was Johnny's brother Chico. "Aren't you cold?" she asks. "No. Well, my feet, a little." And he thinks suddenly, well, my God, nothing happened to Johnny that isn't going to happen to you, too, sooner or later. He sees it again, though. The skating Ford Mustang. The knobs of his brother's spine picked out in a series of dimpled shadows against the white of his Hanes t-shirt. He had been hunkered down, pulling one of the Chevy's back tires. There had been time to see the rubber flying off the tires of the runaway Mustang, to see its hanging muffler scraping up sparks from the infield. It had struck Johnny even as Johnny tried to get to his feet. Then the yellow shout of flame. Well, Chico thinks, it could have been slow. And he thinks of his grandfather. Hospital smells. Pretty young nurses bearing bedpans. A last papery breath. Were there any good ways? He shivers and wonders about God. He touches the small silver St. Christopher's medal that hangs on a chain around his neck. He's not a Catholic, and he's surely not a Mexican. His real name is Edward May, and his friends all call him Chico because his hair is black, and he greases it back with Brill cream, and he wears boots with pointed toes and Cuban heels. Not Catholic, but he wears his medallion. Maybe if Johnny had been wearing one, the runaway Mustang would have missed him. You never know. He smokes and stares out the window. and behind him the girl gets out of bed and comes to him quickly, almost menacing. Maybe afraid he will turn around and look at her. She wants a warm hand on his back. She puts a warm hand on his back, her breast pushed against his side. Her belly touches his buttock. Oh, it is cold. It's this place. Do you love me, Chico? You bet, he says, offhandedly and then more seriously. You were cheery. What does that? You were a virgin. Oh, you were cherry. What does that? You were a virgin. A hand reaches higher, one finger tracing the skin of the nape of his neck. I said it, didn't I? Was it hard? Did it hurt? She laughs. No, but I was scared. They watch the rain. A new Oldsmobile goes by on 14, spraying up water. Stud City, Chico says. What? That guy. He's going to Stud City in his new stud car. She kisses the place her finger had been touching gently, and he brushes at her as if she were a fly. What's the matter? He turns to her. Her eyes flick down to his penis and then up again hastily. Her arms twitch to cover herself, and then she remembers that they never do stuff like that in the movies, and she drops them to her sides again. Her hair is black and her skin is winter white, the color of cream. Her breasts are firm, her belly perhaps a little too soft. One flaw to remind, Chico thinks, that this isn't the movies. Jane, what? He said he can feel himself getting ready, not beginning, but getting ready. It's all right, he said. We're friends. He eyes her deliberately, letting himself reach at her in all sorts of ways. When he looks at her face again, it is flushed. Do you mind me looking at you? No, Chico. She steps back, closes her eyes, sits on the bed, and leans back, legs spread. He sees all of her, the muscles, the little muscles on the inside of her thighs. They're jumping, uncontrolled, and this suddenly excites him more than the taut cones of her breasts or the mild pink pearl of her cunt. Excitement trembles in him. Some stupid bozo on a spring. Love may be as divine as the poets say, he thinks, but sex is Bozo the Clown bouncing around on a spring. How could a woman look at an erect penis without going off into mad gowls of laughter? The rain beats against the roof, against the window, against the sodden cardboard patch blocking the glassless lower pane. He presses his hands against his chest, looking for a moment like a stage Roman about to orate. His hand is cold. He drops it to his side. Open your eyes. We're friends, I said. Obediently, she opens them. She looks at him. Her eyes appeared violet now. The rainwater, running down the window, makes rippling patterns on her face, her neck, her breasts. Stretched across the bed, her belly has been pulled tight. She is perfect in her moment. We've got quite the story inside of a story. Oh, she says, oh, Chico, it feels so funny. A shiver goes through her. She has curled her toes involuntarily. He can see the insteps of her feet. Her insteps are pink. Chico, Chico. He steps toward her. His body is shivering, and her eyes widen. She says something, one word, but he can't tell what it is. This isn't the time to ask. He half kneels before her for just a second, looking at the floor with frowning concentration, touching her legs just above the knees. He measures the tide within himself. Its pool is thoughtless, fantastic. He pauses a little longer. Warning, I have no idea where this is going, so. The only sound is the tiny tick of an alarm clock on the bed table, standing brassy-legged atop a pile of Spider-Man comic books. Her breathing flutters faster and faster. His muscles slide smoothly as he dives Upward and forward, they begin. It's better this time. Outside, the rain goes on washing away the snow. A half an hour later, Chico shakes her out of a little doze. We gotta move, he says. Dad and Virginia will be home pretty quick. She looks at her wristwatch and sits up. This time she makes no attempt to shield herself. Her whole tone, her body English, has changed. She has not matured, although she probably believes she has, or learned anything more complex than tying a shoe. But her tone has changed just the same. He nods and she smiles tentatively at him. He reaches for the cigarettes on the bed table, and as she draws on her panties, he thinks of a line from an old novelty song. Keep playing till I shoot through, Blue. Play your diggery-do. Tie Me Kangaroo Down by Rolf Harris. He grins. This was a song Johnny used to sing. It ended. So we tanned his hide when he died, Clyde. And that's it hanging on the shed. She hooks her bra and begins buttoning her blouse. What are you smiling about, Chico? Nothing, he says. Zip me up. He goes to her, still naked, and zips her up. He kisses her cheek. Go on in the bathroom and do your face if you want, he says. Just don't take too long, okay? She goes up the hall gracefully. Chico watches her, smoking. She is a tall girl, taller than he, and she has to duck her head a little going through the bathroom door. Ooh, she must be 6 feet tall. Chico finds his underpants under the bed. He puts them in the dirty clothes bag hanging just inside the closet door and gets another pair from the bureau. He puts them on and then, while walking back to the bed, he slips and almost falls in a patch of wetness the square of cardboard has let in. God damn, he whispers resentfully. He looks around at the room, which has been Johnny's until Johnny died. Why did I tell her he was in the army, for Christ's sake, he wonders, a little easily. Fiberboard walls, so thin you could hear Dad and Virginia going at it at night. That don't quite make it all the way to the ceiling. The floor was a slightly crazy hip shot angle so that the room's door would only stay open if you block it open. If you forget, it swings stealthily closed as soon as your back is turned. On the far wall is a movie poster from Easy Rider. 2 men went looking for America and couldn't find it anywhere. The room had more life when Johnny lived here. Chico doesn't know how or why, only that it's true. And he knows something else as well. He knows that sometimes the room spooks him at night. Sometimes he thinks that the closet door will swing open and Johnny will be standing there, his body charred and twisted and blackened, his teeth yellow dentures poking out of wax that was partially melted and rehardened, and Johnny will be whispering, "Get out of my room, Chico. And if you lay a hand on my Dodge, I'll fucking kill you. Got it?" Got it, bro, Chico thinks. For a moment he stands still, looking at the rumpled sheet spotted with the girl's blood, and then he spreads the blanket up in one quick gesture. Here, right here. How do you like that, Virginia? How does that grab your snatch? He puts on his pants, his engineer boots, finds a sweater. He's dry combing his hair in front of the mirror when she comes out of the John. She looks classy. Her too soft stomach doesn't show in the jumper. She looks at the bed, does a couple of things to it, and it comes out looking made instead of just spread up. Good, Chico says. She laughs a little, self-consciously, and puts a lock of hair behind her ear. It is an evocative, pignant gesture. Let's go, he says. They go out through the hall and the living room. Jane pauses in front of the tinted studio photograph on top of the TV. It shows his father and Virginia, a high school Johnny, a grammar school Chico, and an infant Billy in the picture. Johnny is holding Billy. All of them are fixed, stone grins. All except Virginia. Except Virginia, whose face is its sleepy, indecipherable self. That picture, Chico remembers, was taken less than a month after his dad married the bitch. That your mother and father? It's my father, Chico said. She's my stepmother, Virginia. Come on. Is she still that pretty? Jane asks, picking up her coat and handing Chico his windbreaker. I guess my own man thinks so, Chico says. They step out into the shed. It's a damp and drafty place. The wind hoots through the cracks in its slapstick walls. There's a pile of old, bald tires, Johnny's old bike, that Chico inherited when he was 10, in which he promptly wrecked, a pile of defective magazines, returnable Pepsi bottles, a greasy monolithic engine block, an orange crate full of paperback books, an old paint by numbers of a horse standing on dusty green grass. Chico helps her pick her way outside. The rain is falling with disheartening steadiness. Chico's old sedan stands in the driveway puddle, looking downhearted. Even up on the blocks, and with the piece of plastic covering the place where the windshield should go, Johnny's Dodge has more class. Chico's car is a Buick. The paint is dull and flowered with spots of rust. The front seat upholstery has been covered with a brown army blanket. A large button pinned to the side visor on the passenger side says, I want it every day. There is a rusty starter assembly on the back seat, and if it ever stops raining, he will clean it, he thinks. And maybe put it into the Dodge, or maybe not. The Buick smells musty, and his old starter grinds a long time before the Buick starts up. Is it your battery, she asks. Just the goddamn rain, I guess. He backs out onto the road, flicking on the windshield wipers and pausing for a moment to look at the house. It is completely unappetizing aqua color. It's an aqua color? That's just weird. The shed sticks off from it at a ragtag, double-jointed angle, taper paper and peeled-looking shingles. The radio comes on with a blare, and Chico shuts it off at once. There is the beginning of a Sunday afternoon headache behind his forehead. They ride past the Grange Hall and the volunteer fire department and Brownie's store. Sally Morrison's T-Bird is parked by Brownie's high-test pump, and Chico raises a hand to her as he turns off onto the old Lewiston Road. Who's that? Sally Morrison. Pretty lady. Very neutral. He feels for his cigarettes. She's been married twice and divorced twice. Now she's the town pump. If you believe half the talk that goes on in this shit-ass little town. She looks young. She is. Have you ever? He slides his hand up her leg and smiles. No, he says. My brother maybe, but not me. I like Sally, though. She's got her alimony and her big white bird. She doesn't care what people say about her. It starts to seem like a long drive. The Androscoggin, off to the right, is slaty and sullen. The ice is all out of it now. Jane has grown quiet and thoughtful. The only sound is the steady snap of the windshield wipers. When the car rolls through the dips in the road, there is a ground fog, waiting for evening, when it will creep up out of these pockets and take over the whole river road. They cross into Auburn, and Chico drives the cutoff and swings onto Minot Avenue. The 4 lanes are nearly deserted, and all the suburban homes look packed. They see one little boy in a yellow plastic raincoat walking up the sidewalk, carefully stepping in all the puddles. Go, man, Chico says softly. What? Jane asks. Nothing, babe. Go back to sleep. She laughs a little doubtfully. Chico turned. That yellow plastic raincoat walking up the sidewalk reminds me of Georgie at the beginning of It. Just saying. Nothing, babe. Go back to sleep. She laughs a little doubtfully. Chico turns up Keyston Street and into the driveway of one of the packed houses. He doesn't turn off the ignition. "Come in and I'll give you cookies," she says. He shakes his head. "I have to get back." "I know." She puts her arm around him and kisses him. "Thank you for the most wonderful time of my life." He smiles suddenly. His face shines. "It is nearly magical. I'll see you Monday, Janie Jane." "Still friends, right?" "You know we are," she says, and kisses him again. But when he cups her breast through her jumper, she pulls away. "Don't, my father might see." He lets her go, only a little of the smile left. She gets out of the car quickly and runs through the rain to the back door. A second later, she's gone. Chico pauses for a moment to light a cigarette, and then he backs out of the driveway. The Buick stalls, and the starter seems to grind forever before the engine manages to catch. It is a long ride home. When he gets there, Dad's station wagon is parked in the driveway. He pulls in beside it and lets the engine die. For a moment, wait, what? Oh, Miami Homestead race. For a moment he sits inside silently, listening to the rain. It is like being inside a steel drum. Inside, Billy is watching Carl Stormer and his country buckaroos on the TV set. When Chico comes in, Billy jumps up excitedly. Excited. "Eddie, hey Eddie, you know what Uncle Pete said? He said him and the whole mess of other guys sank a Kraut sub in the war. Will you take me to the show next Saturday?" "I don't know," Chico says, grinning. "Maybe if you kiss my shoes every night before supper all week." He pulls Billy's hair. Billy hollers and laughs and kicks him in the shins. "Cut it out, now," Sam May says, coming into the room. "Cut it out, you two. You know how your mother feels about the roughhousing." He has pulled his tie down and unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. He's got three red hot dogs. Three red hot dogs on a plate. The hot dogs are wrapped in white bread. The bread of champions. White bread for everything. Hot dogs, hamburgers, sandwiches, you name it. And Sammy May has put the old mustard right to them. "Where you been, Eddie?" "At Jane's." The toilet flushes in the bathroom. Virginia. Chico wonders briefly if Jane has left any hairs in the sink, or a lipstick, or a bobby pin. "You should have come with us to see your Uncle Pete and Aunt Anne," his father says. He eats a frank and 3 quick bites. "You're getting to be like a stranger around here, Eddie." "I don't like that." "Not when we provide the bed and the board." "Some bed," Chico says. "Some board." Sam looks up quickly, hurt at first and then angry. And when he speaks, Chico sees that his teeth are yellow with French's mustard. He feels vaguely nauseated. "Your lip, your goddamn lip. You aren't too big yet, snot-nose." Chico shrugs, peels a slice of Wonder Bread off the loaf, standing on the TV tray by his father's chair, and spreads it with ketchup. "In 3 months, I'm going to be gone anyway." What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm going to fix up Johnny's car and go out to California. Look for work." "Oh yeah? Right." He's a big man, big in a shambling way. But Chico thinks now that he got smaller after he married Virginia, and smaller again after Johnny died. And in his mind he hears himself saying to Jane, "My brother maybe, but not me." And on the heels of that, "Play your dickery-do, Blue. You ain't never gonna get that car as far as Castle Rock, let alone California. You don't think so? Just watch my fucking dust." What is going on with this? I don't know. I need to check it out real quick. Make sure everything's okay in it. Make sure it didn't cut off or anything. No? Nope, still going good. Okay. For a moment his father only looks at him, and then he throws the franc he has been holding. It hits Chico in the chest, spraying mustard on his sweater and on the chair. Say that word again and I'll break your nose for you smart ass. Chico picks up the Frank and looks at it. Cheap red Frank, smeared with French's mustard. Spread a little sunshine. He throws it back at his father. Sam gets up, his face the color of an old brick, the vein in the middle of his forehead pulsing. His thigh connects with the TV tray and it overturns. Billy stands in the kitchen doorway watching them. He's gotten himself a plate of Franks and beans, and the plate has tipped and bean juice runs onto the floor. Billy's eyes wide, his mouth trembling. On the TV, Carl Stormer and the country buckaroos, are tearing through long black veil at a breakneck pace. Good Lord. You raise them up best you can, and they spit on you, his father says thickly. Oh yeah, that's how it goes. He gropes blindly on the seat of his chair and comes up with a half-eaten hot dog. He holds it in his fist like a severed phallus. Incredibly, he begins to eat it. At the same time, Chico sees that he has begun to cry. Oh yeah, they spit on you. That's just how it goes. Well, why the hell did you have to marry her? He bursts out, and then has to bite down on the rest of it. If you hadn't married her, Johnny would still be alive. That's none of your goddamn business, Sam May roars through his tears. That's my business. Oh, Chico shouts. Is that so? I only have to live with her, me and Billy. We have to live with her, watch her grind you down, and you don't even know what, his father says, and his voice is suddenly low and ominous. A chunk of hot dog left in his closed fist is like a bloody chunk of bone. What don't I know? You don't know shit from Shinola, he says, appalled at what has almost come out of his mouth. You want to stop it now, his father says, or I'll beat the hell out of you, Chico. He only calls him this, and he is very angry indeed. Chico turns and sees that Virginia is standing at the other side of the room, adjusting her skirt minutely, looking at him with her large, calm brown eyes. Her eyes are beautiful. The rest of her is not so beautiful, so self-renewing. But those eyes will carry her for years yet, Chico thinks, and he feels the sick hate come back. So we tanned his hide when he died. Clyde, and that's it, hanging on the shed. She's got you pussy whipped, and you don't have the guts to do anything about it. All of this shouting has finally become too much for Billy. He gives a great wail of terror, drops his plate of Franks and beans, and covers his face with his hands. Bean juice splattered his Sunday shoes and spreads across the rug. Sam takes a single step forward and then stops when Chico makes a curt, beckoning gesture, as if to say, yeah, come on, let's get down to it. What took you so fucking long? They stand like statues until Virginia speaks. Her voice is low, as calm as her brown eyes. Have you had a girl in your room, Ed? You know how your father and I feel about that. Almost as an afterthought, she left a handkerchief. He stares at her, savagely unable to express the way he feels, the way she's dirty, the way she shoots unerringly at the back, the way she clips it behind you and cuts at your hamstrings. You could hurt me if you wanted to, the calm brown eyes say. I know you know what was going on before he died. But that's the only way you can hurt me, isn't it, Chico? And only then, if your father believed you, and if he believed you, it would kill him. His father lunges at the new gambit like a bear. Have you been screwing in my house, you little bastard? Watch your language, please, Sam, Virginia says calmly. Is that why you didn't come with us? So you could say it, Chico weeps. Don't let her do it to you. Say it what you mean. Get out, he says dully. Don't you come back until you can apologize to your mother and me. Don't you dare, he cries. Don't you dare call that bitch my mother. I'll kill you. Ooh. Stop it, Eddie, Billy screams. The words are muffled, blurred through his hands, which still cover his face. Stop yelling at Daddy. Stop it, please. Virginia doesn't move from the doorway. Her calm eyes remain on Chico. Sam blunders back a step, and the backs of his knees strike the edge of the easy chair. He sits down in it heavily and averts his face against a hairy forearm. I can't even look at you when you got words like that in your mouth, Eddie. You are making me feel so bad. She makes you feel bad. Why won't you admit it? He does not reply. Still not looking at Chico, he fumbles another frank wrapped in bread from the plate on the TV tray. He fumbles for the mustard. Billy goes on crying. Carl Stormer and his country buckaroos are singing a truck driving song. My rig is old, but that doesn't mean she's slow, Carl tells his Western Maine viewers. The boy doesn't know what he's saying, Sam, Virginia says gently. It's hard at his age. It's hard to grow up. She's whipped him. That's the end of it, all right. He turns and heads for the door, which leads first into the shed and then outdoors. And as he opens it, he looks back at Virginia, and she gazes at him tranquilly when he speaks her name. What is it, Ed? The sheets are bloody, he pauses. I broke her in. He thinks something has stirred in her eyes, and that is probably only his wish. Please go now, Ed. You're scaring Billy. He leaves. The Buick doesn't want to start, and he's almost resigned himself to walking in the rain when the engine finally catches. He lights a cigarette and backs out onto 14, slamming the clutch back in and racing the mill when it starts to jerk and sputter. The generator light blinks balefully at him twice, and then the car settles into a ragged idle. At least he's on his way, creeping up the road toward Gate Falls. He spares Johnny's Dodge one last look. Johnny could have had steady work at Gates Mills and weaving, but only on the night shift. Night work didn't bother him, he had told Chico, and the pay was better than at the Plains, but their father worked days, and working nights at the mill would have meant Johnny would have been home with her, home alone or with Chico in the next room, and the walls were thin. I can't stop and she won't let me try, Johnny said. Yeah, I know what it would do to him, but she just won't stop, and it's like I can't stop. She's always at me, you know what I mean? You see her, Billy's too young to understand, but you've seen her. Yes, he had seen her, and Johnny had gone to work at the Plains, telling their father it was because he could get parts for the Dodge on the cheap. And that's how it happened that he had been changing a tire when the Mustang came skidding and skating across the field, with its muffler dragging up sparks. That was how his stepmother had killed his brother. So just keep playing until I shoot through, Blue. 'Cause we're going stud city right here in this shit heap Buick. And he remembers how the rubber smelled and how the knobs of Johnny's spine cast small crescent shadows on the bright white of his t-shirt. He remembers seeing Johnny get halfway up from the squat he had been working in when the Mustang hit him, squashing him between it and the Chevy. And there had been a hollow bang as the Chevy came down off its jacks, and then the bright yellow flare of flame and the rich smell of gasoline. Chico strikes the brakes with both feet, bringing the sedan to a crunching, juddering halt on the sodden shoulder. He leans wildly across the seat, throws open the passenger door, and sprays yellow puke onto the mud and snow. The sight of it makes him puke again, and the thought of it makes him dry heave one more time. The car almost stalls, but he catches it in time. The generator light winks out reluctantly when he guns the engine. He sits, letting the shakes work their way out of him. A car goes by him fast, a new Ford, white, throwing up great dirty fans of water and slush. Stud City, Chico says. It's this new stud car, Funky. It's his new stud car, Funky. He tastes puke on his lips and in his throat and coating his sinuses. He doesn't want a cigarette. Danny Carter will let him sleep over. Tomorrow will be time enough for further discussions. He pulls back onto Route 14 and gets rolling. 8. Pretty fucking melodramatic, right? The world has seen one or two better stories. I know that. 1 or 200,000 better ones. More like it. I ought to have "This is a product of an undergraduate creative writing workshop" stamped on every page. Because that's just what it was. At least up to a certain point. It seems both painfully derivative and painfully sophomoric to me now. Style by Hemingway, except we've got the whole thing in the present tense for some reason. How too fucking trendy. Theme by Faulkner. Could anything be more serious, more literary? That's quite the word. But even its pretensions can't hide the fact that it's an extremely sexual story written by an extremely inexperienced young man. At the time I wrote Stud City, I had been to bed with 2 girls and had ejaculated prematurely all over one of them. Not much like Chico in the foregoing tale, I guess. Its attitude toward women goes beyond hostility and to a point which verges on actual ugliness. 2 of the women in Stud City are sluts, and the third is a simple receptacle who says things like, "I love you, Chico," and "Come in, I'll give you cookies. Chico, on the other hand, is a macho cigarette-smoking, working-class hero who could have stepped whole and breathing from the grooves of a Bruce Springsteen record, although Springsteen was yet to be heard of from when I was publishing the story in the college literary magazine, where it ran between a poem called "Images of Me" and an essay on student parietals. Okay. Parietals written entirely in lowercase. It is the work of a young man every bit as insecure as he was inexperienced. And yet it was the first story I ever wrote that felt like my story. The first one that really felt whole. After 5 years of trying. The first one that might still be able to stand up, even with its props taken away. Ugly but alive. Even now when I read it, stifling a smile at its pseudo-toughness and its pretensions, I can see the true face of Gordon LaChance, lurking just behind the lines of print. A Gordon LaChance, younger than the one living and writing now. One certainly more idealistic than the best-selling novelist, who is more apt to have his paperback contracts reviewed than his books. But not so young as the one who went to his best friend's that day to see the body of a dead kid named Ray Brower. A Gordon LaChance halfway along in the process of losing the shine. No, it's not a very good story. Its author was too busy listening to other voices to listen as closely as he should have to the one coming from inside. But it was the first time I had ever really used the places I knew and the things I felt in a piece of fiction. And there was a kind of dreadful exhilaration in seeing things that had troubled me for years coming out in a new form, a form over which I had imposed control. It had been years since that childhood idea of Denny being in the closet of his spookily preserved room had occurred to me. I would have honestly believed I had forgotten it. Yet, there it is in Stud City, only slightly changed, but controlled. I've resisted the urge to change it a lot more, to rewrite it, to juice it up, and that urge was fairly strong, because I find the story quite embarrassing now. But there were still things in it I like, things that would be cheapened by changes made by this later LaChance, who has the first threads of gray in his hair, things like that image of the shadows on Johnny's white t-shirt or that of the rain ripples on Jane's naked body that seem better than they have any right to be. Also, it was the first story I'd ever showed to my mother and father. There was too much Denny in it, too much Castle Rock, and most of all, too much 1960. You always know the truth, because when you cut yourself or someone else with it, there's always a bloody show. We're going to stop there. Chapter 7 was a story that Gordon had written when he was in college. And the story is coming from Gordy's point of view. So, and that is exactly what happens in in Stand By Me. It's all said from Gordon's point of view. So, and you find out, like, I can take the images of what the kids look like. Oh, excuse me. Of what the kids look like in Stand By Me and put it into here, but at the same time, I kind of want to give my own view of what these kids look like. So, it's kind of neat. I'm not sure how long it'll take us to get to them, like going places, but I'm really liking how far we've gotten in it. We're still in the 300s, so we still have over 100 pages to go. I do believe it's like 450, I think is where we need to go. Yeah, it's like 452. So we still got 120 pages left, which is great. I don't really like reading too long. I know the last parts of Bag of Bones were long, but I don't like reading too long because I don't want to lose myself and forget what I'm reading. So I'm going to stop there for today. I might read a little bit later some night shift, but tonight we will be reading another, hour's worth of the story. To sit down and read just, an hour, even if you're just listening, is very good for your brain. So that's an awesome part. Anyway, I want to let you guys go. I appreciate you guys sticking by me. Oh, thank you for interacting with me. Not too many people do, so it's very, very nice when I see people interacting with me. It's great. I love it. So it's nice. I'm not sure where everybody's from. I know there's at least one from Florida and one from Tennessee that read with me. Sometimes my son will listen. Sometimes my husband will even listen from upstairs. So it's really nice. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for sticking with me, for listening, for being here. I love y'all. Follow if you wish. I will be back on this evening. I've been doing when my husband works, I do about 7, unless I'm cooking dinner. But usually it's more toward 8 o'clock-ish, 8:30-ish, because I want to get dinner in and get eating, and I spend dinner usually. Excuse me, I don't know what the yawns are for, probably because I didn't sleep very well. Like I was awake a couple times, and then my dogs got me up early, so my alarm did. And then I decided to get up to take my daughter to work and let my dogs out, so it's a combination. But yeah, I was up early. Maybe that's why I'm yawning, but don't it matter. We will read tonight, and we will read another hour or so. So I really appreciate y'all sticking with me, and I will see you shortly. Did my cat lay on my husband? I think a cat laid on my husband. You'll lay in bed and the cats come right up to you. And my cat, she'll lay right on your arm or on your back or on your side. Sometimes at the head where my pillow is. Like right on my pillow. She's adorable. But yeah, sometimes they get up on him. And he's got a cat. Yep, she did. She claimed him. That is too cute. Let me see if I can show you guys here real quick. This is my little, oops, there we go. There's my little panther. Isn't she adorable? She's all black. She's 10 years old now. So, yeah. She just enjoys cuddling and relaxing. That is too cute. Anyway, I am going to let you guys go. I'm surprised my dogs have been so quiet. I'm thinking since our Roddy Harley is on the couch, that means the Pitweiler Phoebe is on a chair that she has decided to eat. And so she continues to eat it. And then we stuff the stuffing back in, and then she tears it out, put it back in. It's an old chair, so she ate my couch too, but, the couch is the couch. It's old. It's probably a few years old, but it gets roughed on between the dogs and my kid. So she looks so comfy. She looks so comfy. She does. She looks comfy. Anyway, the yawning needs to quit, so I'm going to go make me some coffee or cappuccino or something, and I have Keurig. I use the little pods, and I throw it in there for my cappuccino. Coffee, I can throw in the coffee maker if I want, but I'm going to go make something, and I'm probably going to listen to some YouTube and kind of chill. I might sit down and work on my Bible crosswords. I have this whole book. You guys got to see this whole book. It's got different word games in it, and it's this thick. And some of them I can't figure out. I have some that I'm like, what is this? How do I work this? So yeah. Yeah. Hi! What? You hear me talking and suddenly you want to come see me? I'm talking about a Bible book of games and you come see me. Hi! Did you get a good nap while I was reading? Did you? Did you say hi to everybody? Say hi, everybody. Hi, Phoebe. Okay. All right. Don't take my shirt off. What? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? All right. I will see you guys later. Thank you for sticking with me. I love y'all. I will talk to you soon. All right. Bye.